2023 is coming to a close. So much has happened this year. It's been an incredible year to watch overall. It's been a competitive year for a lot of different reasons. Macro and just in our industry economically, it's been very interesting to watch as well. I mean, there's 9+ million job listings still out in the U.S. Interest rates are supposed to remain higher for longer, affecting the cost of reinvestment in our space. And, I think shops are just overall pushing through a lot of economic bullwhip effects from when COVID closed our economy. So what does this mean for decorators, right? And what are the different things that we can do to think about for next year? So I've got a bunch of different data points. I've got some thoughts and just overall 7 different concepts to be able to think about while we go into 2024 and maybe how to apply them. So this is probably a little bit easier to watch on YouTube just because of the charts and some of the visuals, but I'm going to explain it visually as much as I possibly can too. So first thing is pricing adjustments. It was interesting, over the few thousand shops that use Printavo, we pulled a lot of data around pricing. And specifically, we started with average order sale by month. And so this is a chart, and Chris, you could pop this up, of the average order sale around, low 400s, maybe $400 to $450 per order, starting in around 2014 up until 2020, early 2020. And that average order sale only increased roughly 1% per year. Now, what does this mean? Well, this means that as an industry, we did not increase our prices enough to really even keep up with inflation, which inflation historically is about 2 to 3%. Now, what does that exactly mean? Well, that means the cost of goods and everything that we purchase or deal with and services that we use generally increases prices about 2 to 3% every single year. But if a shop is only increasing pricing on average 1%, that means that there's a spread of about 1 to 2% that you're essentially losing every single year as well. And so you're making about 1 to 2% less money if you're not adjusting and keeping up with the average amount of inflation. Now, after COVID, we all know the cost of wages increased, the cost of equipment and supplies and everything else increased. And we experienced a jump of an average order sale value increase in that first year of 17%. The next year, 11%. And then the following year in 2023, this year, 1%. And so it is interesting to see, and it's great that the average order sale price did increase and hopefully kind of hold stagnant. But it is a note for us to all make sure to review pricing at least annually to be able to adjust those up from there, right? We didn't do that enough previously, but I think it's important that we keep pushing up. We're always scared of customers leaving or them pushing back. But the reality is that if you're not increasing it, you're actually losing money, and that is because of how inflation works. The next thing is order quantities. We also pulled average order quantity per job and noticed that from September 2018, we were at about 118 items per order. And that number didn't really change much until September 2023. It's about 132 items per order. And so the reason why this is interesting is because I remember hearing so much about how DTG is shifting the space and how people are ordering less items but ordering more volume. And the data just doesn't prove that. I mean, as a whole, granted, there's so many different niches in our industry, but as a whole, it hasn't really shifted much. If anything, it's gone up about 11%. All right, next is niches. Honestly, I've been very lucky to have spoken and just recorded content, either shop tours or podcasts, with 200 plus shops. And so it's cliche to say find your niche, because I don't think that that's actually practical early on. Like, I think sub $1 million in sales, that's just not practical. You're really trying to scrape together as many different jobs as you possibly can to get revenue going and in the door. And so when you hit 1 million, which by the way, hats off to being able to do that, that is a huge accomplishment, and doing it profitably, that's when we see so many different types of shops start narrowing in on their niche, right? They're starting to think about, wow, I need to be more profitable. I don't want to be grinding this out and not be able to have a great take home at the end of the day. I mean, you as the business owner should have a great lifestyle. That's what you want. You want a great work-life balance. You want a great lifestyle. You don't want to be grinding 70 hours a week and stuck in the business overtime. That's not the goal. And so what we see is they cut on profitable customers. They reduce services offered to the core, and they feel more comfortable outsourcing work, building up partnerships that way and doing that. And then also we see them starting to hire salespeople, right? I think a lot of our space is very inbound driven, but how do you create a more predictable revenue source? And that's where outbound sales has been, and really drumming up good, solid repeat business, dependable repeat business has been interesting to watch. So again, the faster that shops have been able to double down on their specialty, we've seen the faster they're able to streamline their people and their process and truly maximize sales opportunities in their space. So that's cool. And along with that, there's this concept of sweet spots. And this has been mentioned quite a few times. I've heard it from shops that have really scaled way big and then saying, you know what? Not only do I miss the days of a 2 or 3 auto shop, but I also think that was when we were most profitable. And that piques my interest, right? Because as a business owner, we tend to really focus on top line growth constantly. That's what we want. We're searching for it. We want to get to that next number and be able to say, hey, we grew 30% this year, right? But the problem is that I think you can actually cruise right past your sweet spot and not even know it. And so that sweet spot I define as that's a point where profitability is truly maximized. Generally speaking, most screen printing shops are locally based. And I'm not saying necessarily that there's a cap on the revenue that you can attain, but each stage of growth does have a significant cost attributed to it, right? I mean, moving into a proper warehouse, hiring 10 people, needing a lead worker now, hiring 25, needing strong management for departments, having 50 to 100, needing middle management now, right? These are big costs that drive down the profitability, hopefully temporary, and then as long as you allow you to scale up again. But where in that region is your sweet spot? And maybe you cruise past, but you can always slide back down. It's okay to slide back down into your slot so you know where that is to truly be able to maximize the profits that you're making. Next up, DTF Investing. I think this is one of the big buzzwords of 2023, maybe outdone by AI, but very interesting to see all of the DTG vendors at Long Beach that popped up about a year or two ago, and that'll be cool to see this year as well. But, the use cases are really shining through, right? Tough to print locations, specialty materials, low quantities, printing on demand, all kinds of e-commerce usages, online stores, temporary or long-term running stores. But I think the bigger question people have is, are you investing in DTF equipment or are you ordering transfers? And why? Right. And so we actually had a great panel that was put on at Print Hustles Conf this year. And they were from different ends of the spectrum. One shop was spending $500,000 a year with Supercolor ordering transfers. One shop had 3 DTF machines and was constantly running these things to be able to get their on-demand orders out. I'm going to do a quick paraphrasing, though, of what was said and let you decide, because it's a big it depends. Max Hellman at Family Industries, who was spending about $500,000 a year on Supercolor, said his specialty is live events. And honestly, they don't want to staff someone to run a DTF machine. The manuals aren't great. The support isn't great yet. There's no clear winner there, and we don't want to figure that out. We just want to continue to focus on our niche. Stephen Farrig at Campus Inc., he's purchased 7 DTF machines now, and He said, I'm happy if they run 5 days in a row without breaking down. But it works for their print-on-demand business. And he also said, I wouldn't really focus on it unless I'm spending 7 to 10K a month on transfers, because the time on maintenance is a lot. And lastly, Kevin Oakley, stoked on printing. He said, I feel like I'm understanding basic Mandarin from these DTF manuals now. We do a lot of print demand, so we do DTF in-house, but it's no small feat, and it's an excessive amount of time to learn it. Something to, again, think about, right? You as an owner, how do you want to balance out your life? How do you want to balance out the business, and what do you want to spend time doing? Next up, hiring and artificial intelligence. So as I mentioned, there were last month 9.5 million job openings. And so it's competitive out there. Everybody knows this, right? It's competitive to find good people and keep them. And on top of that, we've experienced a lot of wage inflation, right? You have to be more competitive. You have to offer more benefits and to keep people happy. And that's just the way it is. And so we've seen some pretty great marketing tactics actually to do that. Sticker Mule was buying billboards around their town. Hosting open houses, grilling food, paying bonuses like $1,000 for existing staff for referrals, allowing for remote work if it's possible. I've even seen paying applications for trial jobs like on a day, right? So, paying someone to stay for a day and hang out, and then seeing if they're a good fit. But it's clear that we have to do a lot more there to hire, train, and retain. But something to consider is that how do you be more efficient with less people? How do you not just accept what the status quo is as far as what roles are and what people are supposed to do? And I think AI especially has been able to help that. And that's through OpenAI, that's through some of the different AI tools. But there's other things, right? Can you invest in software to help increase efficiency? Can you help rearrange the shop to reduce steps? Can you be able to cut out seconds, which add up to hours over time, which is labor costs? Can you hire virtual assistants overseas to free up people's time from doing mundane tasks? Can you work with sales coaches to help supercharge existing sales reps, or utilize AI for creative? It's pretty cool. I think, what our younger generation is doing, using technology to be a lot more efficient, is just going to scale even faster. And I think if you're not on that boat and just absorbing and picking things up and asking good questions, you're just going to be left in an unprofitable bucket, spending extra time on labor and people. So next up is contribution margin. I really love this theory. This was brought up by Nick G at printprofit.com. But honestly, the reason is because calculating pricing is just hard. There's tons of detailed pricing matrices, there's calculations, there's overhead, production time, wages. How do you include consumables in all of this? It gets as complex as you can make it, right? And I think the more complex something is, the less stickier it is to really be able to use and use well. And so how do you understand profitability, and how do you be able to break it down and make it simpler? And then also, how do you align the team to make good decisions about profitability? And so that's why contribution margin, I think, is such a huge point for our industry to really adopt. And this not only helps you be able to understand it, but it also, again, aligns the team to making the right choices. So the simplest way of putting it is, first of all, establish your fixed cost per month. Make it simple. Rent, ink, labor, owner's pay, utilities, these types of things that you're paying for no matter what, those are your fixed costs. And figure out what that is per month. Then is the variable costs. Things like garments and commission, for example, are great variable costs. And then next thing, every job has a contribution margin. That's the total sale minus the variable cost for that order. And so that contribution margin drops into the monthly fixed cost bucket. And so you're kind of digging your way out of the fixed cost bucket every single month. And your goal is to break even on those monthly fixed costs as quickly as possible. Because the rest of the jobs, that contribution margin is going to drive towards profit, right? And so you can see this in a chart. We'll pop this up here for you as well. But you can see how that works. And I think this premise just really helps simplify this for people to be able to help drive more profit to the business and to be able to experiment with pricing as to how much, and different product offerings as to how much contribution margin you are adding based on the different orders you are creating. Hopefully those are helpful. I think those are fascinating different theories and things that people are thinking about this year. We'll keep doing this. Hopefully you like this. Drop a comment below if there's something that's big for you this past year that you want to implement next year. Would love to be able to share it. All right, Bruce from Printavo, signing off.